Hey everyone, it's rambl-y here, and I am here filming a review of the Blackout journal. So as you guys know, I have been using this Blackout journal since July. I used it from July 2019 to December 2019. And over that time, I've had a lot of thoughts and feelings about my overall experience with Blackout journaling. And I have finally collected all of my thoughts and feelings about working in a Blackout notebook. So this is kind of a review slash tips and tricks video slash my favorite spreads from this Blackout journal all in one video. So I'm also going to do another pen test in this Blackout notebook eventually, because I bought more pens along the way, and I want to show you guys all of the pens that I really liked and didn't like and all that kind of stuff while I was using this notebook. With all that said, I started out, this is actually take 2 of me recording this video. I filmed most of it with my face and I just didn't end up liking what I was saying, and it felt very choppy because I didn't know how to collect my thoughts around it. So instead, of course, because I would rather you see my hands anyways, I made a list because I am a bullet journaler, and that's what bullet journalers do. We make lists. So this is my overall thoughts about the Blackout journal, and I would like to expand on some of these thoughts. Overall, I want to just talk about the quality really quick because I have the Blackout journal from Archer and Olive, and I want to tell you guys that journaling and finances and all that kind of stuff, that's a very personal journey. It is up to you whether it is considered quote unquote worth it or not. For me personally, having a 160 GSM notebook gave me a lot more freedom to use a lot more products, which in this Blackout notebook, because of the types of mediums that I was using and the types of supplies I was using, I felt really grateful that I went with a 160 GSM notebook. So I would suggest, not encourage, but suggest that if you are trying Blackout journaling, you try it with a higher quality paper, because some of the experiences that I had, it got better over time because I was able to use different types of supplies that I wasn't using in the beginning. And so doing an entire 6 months, I couldn't just use the same Jelly Roll pens every single month. I really needed some other type of medium, and I got to use paints and paint pens and things like that in this journal because of the 160 GSM paper, and there was no bleeding. There was a touch bit of warping, as you can see when I got a little heavy-handed with some of the paint and didn't dry as quickly as I probably should have. But overall, I don't think I would have been able to have that experience with those supplies without the 160 GSM. And this is a really, really good quality notebook. I know Bonnie quite well, actually, from Archer and Olive. She is the creator. I've gotten to know her small team pretty well. And I just want to say that overall, Archer and Olive as a company, I really, really like, and I like what they stand for, and I like that they're a small business. People think that they're this giant corporation, but it's not. It's just Bonnie and a small team. So I just want to say that I encourage people to support small businesses. I have a small business myself, so I really think that this is a really high quality notebook, and I think that that type of quality notebook was really instrumental in me enjoying my overall Blackout experience. And with all that said, I do want to say that while I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty of my pros and cons, I do feel like this overall Blackout experience was very, very positive. I got a lot of things out of Blackout journaling, but I do want to be transparent and say what I feel like the cons were, because if you are trying to decide if you're going to do Blackout planning, then I think you guys should know what you're getting into, because it is not for the faint of heart to try this type of bullet journaling. So the pros that I wrote down are, it is different. You I mean, now you are seeing a lot of this type of stuff in the bullet journaling community because of Archer and Olive, because people like me have done blackout planning, things like that. But it's still extremely different. The second one I put was buying more pens, because as a stationery person at heart, I love pens, and it gave me an excuse, I guess, to go down a rabbit hole. Now, you guys might be a little bit more self-disciplined than I when it comes to this, but buying more pens was fun. And you can see that buying more pens was also on the cons list. I put less is more. So what I mean by that is, when I was bullet journaling in this notebook, I didn't feel like I needed things like washi tape, although I went a little ham in October with washi tape, but I didn't feel like I needed washi tape. I didn't feel like I needed a ton of drawings. I felt like just little pops were enough. For example, when I was doing my fingerprint theme, you can see that it's such a different look than my normal look, because I just felt like there was so few things needed, because the colors pop so much on this paper that I didn't need a lot of decorative elements to find some balance. And now I know that a lot of people are minimalists and they don't care about that, but for people that are decorators like myself, I didn't feel like I really needed a ton of extra elements. I felt like these few small pieces really popped so much that I didn't feel like I needed to take that extra time doing a ton of decorative elements. So overall, that's what I kind of mean by less is more. So that's what I mean by less is more. I just didn't feel the need to add an extra amount of decorative elements like I do when I typically use a white bullet journal. Trying more mediums, and this is going to be part of the tips and tricks, is trying paint pens. I tried chalk markers in this last month, which worked out really, really well, and the color is holding really well. So I got to try a lot of acrylic paints, paint pens, chalk markers, stuff that I don't normally associate with bullet journaling, although I associate it with other sort of creative things like painting and things like that. But it felt really fun to be able to use paint pens and chalk markers and things like that I normally wouldn't have even thought twice of doing. And the chalk markers pop so much more, and the paint pens pop so much in this blackout notebook compared to a white notebook. So trying more mediums, which is a lot of fun for me, and again goes kind of with buying more pens. Metallics pop off the page. Now, I have used metallics in white notebooks before, and it is gorgeous, but there are very few times where it will pop off the page like these metallics do in this August spread. Having this gold and this doing this blending technique with the jelly rolls and with the metallics in particular, the metallics blended much better together than the Moonlight collection did. And these metallics, it's just, they pop so much off the page. Again, which is part of this less is more concept. You don't need to do a ton of drawings, because doing something like this with metallics, it just pops. So I just felt like that is a pro because of the aesthetic point of view, and because if you are a decorative planner, you don't really have to decorate as much. Being pushed out of my comfort zone. That was a big thing, which goes along with feeling more creative, because I was experimenting with this blackout planning. It gave me a chance to be a lot more creative when it came to picking themes, when it came to picking pens and trying out new types of pens like the chalk markers. I would have never thought to do that in my normal white bullet journal, but I felt like I was being pushed to be more creative. Even my first theme of the month, which was a fingerprint theme, I felt like it was just so much fun to get so creative with this type of theme, because fingerprints are boring, right? They are literally black ink on your thumb pushing down on a paper. But I felt like because I was able to use these types of colors, and it was the inverse effect with the white pens instead of a black fingerprint, I felt like it was so creative in my own brain. I mean, I don't know if you guys think it was creative, but like my own brain thought it was creative. So it was definitely pushing me out of my comfort zone. And then obviously for me, being a Instagrammer person and on social media, it gave me a lot of growth on social media because I was doing something different. So those are a few of my pros for the Blackout journal. A few of my cons are waiting time for your pens to dry because of the types of ink that you need to use. And I would say this is mostly for like the white Jelly Roll pen. I had that experience when I was using like the different paints and paint pens and chalk markers and stuff too. The waiting time to dry was really frustrating so I needed to make sure, like when I was filming a setup video, that I was filming it over a longer period of time because I needed to wait. I needed to leave the notebook open, wait for it to dry, walk away, do something else, and then come back to it later. So I felt like I was filming for longer periods of time because of that. Buying more pens, again, my financial situation is not the best. So I feel like I should not have gone down the rabbit hole, but I felt like, again, as kind of an Instagrammer and someone who people ask questions to about this type of system, I felt like I needed to experience a whole bunch of pens. But buying pens and getting caught going down that rabbit hole is not the most fun situation. Needing workarounds, which I will put in the tips and tricks, and I'll talk about a little bit more there. Because it takes so long to dry, sometimes you need a workaround for when you're like moving about and on the go. If I needed to write a task down before rushing off to a meeting at work or something like that, then I couldn't just do that if I needed to bring my notebook with me. There were some workarounds that I needed to do, which again is going to be my tips and tricks. The metallic dusting, as much as I like the metallic pens, there is a dusting situation that happens, especially when you're writing on the other side, and you can kind of see it on this page. So, and I'm writing tasks. You can see that tasks shows up in this dusting on the other page. Now it's really easy to get rid of. All you need is a plastic pen and go like that and it's gone. So if it's on the black, because I am writing on a metallic, at some point I wrote on a metallic and it came up, then it's really easy to get rid of, but there's just this metallic dusting that happens when you're writing, when it's going from one page to the other. That is, it looks kind of cluttered and dirty until you erase, but you can just erase it. So I don't know. It's just something to think about, that this metallic dusting situation happens where it just gets on the rest of the pages. And this eraser is from Tombow. It's a Tombow Mono plastic eraser, I think, and I'll have it linked below in the description. For me, being on social media, there was quite a learning curve to trying to figure out how to take photos of these pages and to edit the photos, because my traditional method didn't work for these black pages. So trying to edit the photos to present this on Instagram was pretty difficult, especially towards the end of the year when there's not as much sunlight outside and I don't have as much natural light. Trying to do that under studio lights was very, very difficult. And then my last con was missing pastels and softer colors. Now I kind of got that back towards the end of the year when I tried these chalk markers, and it's one of the reasons why I sought out these types of markers, because everything else was just either so poppy, so bright, or it I was just missing that kind of pastel element, and I finally got it back here with like the pinks and the blues. It gave me a little bit more of that pastel feel, but I really just miss having those softer elements because everything in the Blackout journal felt so harsh. So that's something to think about if you really like a pastel color scheme. And again, this was me being pushed out of my comfort zone because I do like a lot of pastel colors. So I felt like I was being pushed out of my comfort zone by trying all of these neon colors and things like that. If you are really, really into pastel colors and you don't want to try anything bright, then Blackout planning is probably not for you because there's not a lot of resources out there to get a pastel look on a Blackout journal. So just something to think about. Here are my tips and tricks. So when you're using gel pens, write slowly. So if you're using gel pens, write really slowly. It allows the ink to bleed together, and so you don't get a lot of this, like, I use a Uniball Signo for this particular spread because I ran out of my white jelly roll, and I liked the white jelly roll better than this Uniball Signo because there's not as much of the like you see where the tip is writing. The white jelly roll pen, I just felt like handled that a little bit better. Even with writing slow with this, you can see where that tip of the pen shows up. But writing slowly will allow that ink to really flow slower, and so you won't get as many issues when it comes to where the tip is. If you're in a rush, use Post-it notes because most pens that you're going to be using need some drying time. There was a couple pens that I felt like dried pretty quickly. I think those were the Pilot metallic pens, and I, again, will link those below. So those didn't need as much drying time, but if you're using jelly roll pens, they definitely need drying time. So if you're on the go, like I was talking about in the cons, I would put sticky notes on here and just write my tasks in regular black pen and put it in the front of my notebook or on the page that I'm using, and try to remember to write it in later. Getting a ruler with a cork bottom. So again, this has to do with how the ink gets put down and how it doesn't dry right away. So if you get a cork bottom, the ink is not going along the edge of your ruler. It is going on the paper, and there is a little bit of distance from the edge of the ruler to the paper. So when you're moving the ruler away, it's not going to move the ink. I think you guys have seen this a little bit while I have worked in this notebook. I'm going to see if I can find an example. So this little bit of smudging that can happen, if you see right here, because I used a regular ruler. If I had used a ruler with a cork bottom, that probably wouldn't have happened because the ink isn't still on the ruler, if that makes sense. So having a cork bottom ruler would help out a lot when it comes to making sure those smudging lines don't happen. I didn't use a ruler a lot in this notebook, so that is a suggestion that I have gotten from other people, so I wanted to pass that suggestion along to you. So don't press hard with the jelly roll pens. It is kind of like this hovering technique that you need to do where you don't even press very hard on the paper and you go pretty slowly and allow the ink to go. But once you press hard, that's when you're gonna get these types of pen lines as well. So you can see pressing harder, you get that line where the tip is because the ink isn't flowing freely. But if I am going really slowly and not touching the paper, you don't get that line. So that is a tip for just getting a more consistent look out of your jelly roll pens. Trying paint pens, chalk markers, and acrylic paint. I used that quite a bit towards the end. Obviously, this entire theme, the Galactic Dreams, I used the chalk markers. Again, you get that metallic dusting though. Acrylic paint takes a little while to dry and it needs a couple layers. Yeah, so if you can see, this was like one layer, this was one layer, but this was, I think, 2 layers. So it probably needs a couple layers with the acrylic paint, and it does take drying time, but it's fun to use those different kind of mediums as well. Put down a base and let it dry by working in other areas before writing on it. So this is something that I had a lot of experience on over time. When I was working on this spread, for example, I did all of this paint first, went over here to do the events, went over here to do Monday, and then came back and did all the white line work on here. Doing the base paint first and then doing a lot of other things so it doesn't take as much time to work on a spread. So jumping around the page to do different elements, that was definitely something that I felt worked a lot better over time when I figured out, like, I don't just have to put this down and then walk away. I can put this down and then work on this, and then work on this, and then work on this, or something like that. And then I can do the line work over it to complete that part of the element. And I would do the same thing on these dailies. I would put down all of the ink part first and then go through, and I did the macros and fitness areas next, and then I started writing down Monday, and then I went back in and I put down the header part. So putting in those elements last helps move things along. My favorite spreads, yes, I get to do this part. Okay, so August calendar page was my favorite spread, I think, of all of them, because it was the first time that I did this blending technique on a larger scale, and I just really enjoyed how that looked, and this felt balanced. I got to do some doodles, but it was just an overall one of my favorite spreads to do was this calendar layout. The next one was this September horizontal. Again, a lot of this is gonna be about blending, but doing these little blending elements to have all those colors pop, but then doing something really simple for the gold lightning bolt. I just really liked how this all looked, and this is just a really fun page. I didn't use the white pens here, I used all the colorful pens, and it just really felt like it popped a lot, and I really liked this page in particular. And then my last one was anything with the galactic theme, mostly because this is just like one of my favorite color schemes. I really like this color scheme. I really liked how the chalk markers worked. I really liked how easy it was to write over the chalk markers. I really liked these like really fat pens. I like that it was so easy to do with just these little cloud elements. And so pretty much anything with these, I really like this theme. I really like this color scheme. I really liked using a new medium. It felt really nice to get the pastels back by the time this notebook was over. So that was probably my third favorite, was pretty much anything from that theme. And then my favorite pens, the white Jelly Roll pen. This one's not bad. I just felt like the white Jelly Roll pen flowed a little bit more easily than the Uniboss Signo, but this is a really good white pen also. The Moonlight Collection. The Moonlight Collection comes in 6 and 10. If you like a finer tip, the 6 would work, but I like the larger tip. I just felt like the ink flowed a little bit better from those. So that Moonlight Collection in the size 10 from Jelly Roll, which is from Sakura. Those were my go-tos that whole time. The September theme, where I had all those colors, that was using the size 10 of the Moonlight Collection. And then the Kuretake metallic brush pens. That is what I used in November to do these lines. I really like this brush pen, and I wish I would have tried them a little bit more earlier so that I could have had sort of my highlighting elements, but I didn't really get to do those quite as much. because I didn't really think about it until November. So getting to do the highlights again, which was something I was really missing because I do that a lot in my white bullet journal, if you haven't been able to tell. So using those Kuretake metallic brush pens, I really wish I started using them much, much earlier than just doing the Jelly Roll pens. So that was probably my third favorite of everything. And so those are my overall thoughts and feelings about the Blackout journal. Overall, I had a very positive experience. I would say it's not for the lighthearted or someone that has a very busy, rushed life that like you would have to do everything on sticky notes and then transfer it later. I don't know if that's quite how you want a bullet journal. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I think that it's really nice for minimalists. It's really nice for people that just want to expand their creativity and get really excited about something. I was so excited to use this journal, and I'm excited to use it again one day. I just needed to change it up a little bit, mostly because of the needing some pastel and softer colors and stuff like that, and trying more mediums in the white bullet journal. But I just really, really, really like this Blackout journal, mostly because it gave me a chance to expand. It gave me a chance to be creative. It gave me a chance to push me out of my comfort zone. And I feel like a better bullet journaler for all those reasons. So those are all my thoughts and feelings. I hope you like this video. I hope you like these explanations. I will do another pen test video coming up. Thank you guys for joining me for my whole Blackout journaling experience from July to December. If you want to see all those videos, please go to my Plan With Me playlist or my weekly Plan With Me playlist. There's tons of videos out there, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.